Okay, well, welcome to Tecman Talks Dynamics. Joined with Matt and Liz. And even though we are all in the same building, we're in separate rooms or booths because our media room is being redeveloped. So we're moving from the little room we've had for the last 3 or 4 years, and we've got a big new media studio coming at Tecman in the next few weeks. So hopefully this will be the last one we do in this format. But today,
I'm trapped in a cupboard.
trapped in a cupboard.
Hopefully that's from a cupboard, yeah.
So what we thought we'd talk about is really carry on from the podcast we did the last episode where we were talking about moving to SaaS. One of the benefits of being in SaaS is that you get all the latest AI functionality that Microsoft are bringing to the D365 product. And specifically, we've talked about Copilot in the past. Copilot is like a chat-based tool where you can ask questions, and I'm sure a lot of us have used that in our personal lives as well as maybe on business apps like Word and Excel and Office and Teams. But we're looking today at more to do with agents. So agents is something that has been talked about quite a lot by Microsoft in the last 12 months. Anybody want to have a stab at defining what an agent is to kick it off?
Yeah, go on. I'll take a stab. It's a piece of autonomous software that's defined to do a very particular task. So, I think we're going to end up with lots of different agents over time, all doing very specific things. And at some point, agents will probably speak to other agents as well.
Okay, so where I guess we've all used like ChatGPT and Copilot for it's almost our own little personal agent, or personal AI assistant, where we can say, tell me about something in my personal life, tell me about where the best place to get this is, tell me something within my inbox. We ask it questions on all different types of subjects, and it comes back. It understands natural language. With an agent, it has a particular task or a particular role to do, and that's all it does. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so while Copilot is an assistant, an agent can work on its own.
It's a doer.
So it's almost sitting there 24/7 if needs be, and it's either waiting for a trigger or a prompt, or it can be a question from somebody, and then it goes off and it does whatever it needs to do.
So it can be trained to do repetitive tasks.
Okay. So, I mean, Microsoft have defined these in 2 or 3 ways for their products. Agents aren't just a Microsoft thing. So agents are going to be all over all products and lots of different software applications. But I think Microsoft have got 2 or 3 that they've spoke about. There's some that they are building themselves that will be included in the product. So we're going to talk about a couple of those in Business Central today. You can also create your own agents very simply the one example I always give is pointing an agent at a SharePoint library. So we put lots of information in a SharePoint folder, and then the agent can query the information that's in there. It doesn't go anywhere else. It doesn't go online.
It can give an answer.
It gives an answer. So
a really example that you gave at the recent customer day was where you've got a load of HR policies and loads of documents. Rather than having to trawl through them all, you basically ask the agent, what is my holiday entitlement? And it will come back with a response based on the data that you've told it to look at, which could be a combination of internal and external data, if you wanted it to be.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, and I think the idea, again, it comes back to trying to make us all more efficient. Our HR team or individuals get peppered, various times during the week on those type of questions. What's my holiday allocation? How do I do this? Can I claim for that? And what we're trying to do is remove those interruptions that people have in their day so they can get on with their day job. And the agent can do these repetitive tasks that actually don't need a particular skill set. They just need to know where the data is to find the right answers for a role or a process. Okay, so that's agents generally, very high level. So
should we just point out as well that using agents is not necessarily, really, it's not free.
It's not free. Okay, so yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
That's quite important to bear in mind that this, where you're using agents, it's calling on a lot of data and it's doing a lot of work. That is not free. That has to be paid for. So we do need to touch on that, I think, because I think there's an assumption amongst some that it's not, that it's a replacement for people and it's going to be free, but it's not free.
No. Okay, it is a replacement for people, but you said it's not free.
Yeah.
This is where I think Microsoft have started to have two names. You've got Copilot and you've got agents now in Business Central, and I'm only talking about Business Central. You have Copilot now included within Business Central on your subscription, and that allows you to question certain things, very basic questions within the data set that you've got.
Yeah, who
Who's
are
my
my top five customers
yeah.
based on sales? Who are my top? Yeah, that kind of thing.
So it's like
And an account summary as well. So you can go to a customer card and say summarise this record, and it will just
Yeah,
give you some
it'll
headline
give you
information
text,
about them.
like yeah, text
So
headlines and
it's
things.
coming back to that idea of Copilot being your own personal assistant. You might have a quick
Yeah,
question you need answering, and it will go away and crunch a bit of
yeah,
data for you and come back with an answer. An agent, as Matt started by saying, it's really defined, and this is what it can do. This is the task or the business process it's got. And as you said, that there will be a charge for that because it goes off to Microsoft's cloud, and it's using a whole bunch of processing to generate that because it can be quite complex. They have put some pricing around, and it's transactionally based. So you're not just paying a flat fee; you will pay for what you use. And we're waiting for the models to be completely defined. But they've given us some examples that we can maybe touch on as we close the podcast
yeah.
out. Okay, so what's the first one that we've got in preview on BC at the moment? It's the sales order agent.
Sales
Sales
order
order
agent. Yeah,
agent.
yeah.
Okay, so explain to me what that does in layman's terms.
Do you want me to
Go
tell
on,
you?
you go,
I
Matt.
set one up yesterday,
Okay, cool,
Yeah,
yeah.
go on.
and in effect, it's you hook it up to a mailbox, so an email account.
Yeah, orders at.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then it can communicate with emails going in and out of that and perform certain sales related business transactions. So what do I mean by that? So you could send an email asking for what's the price of a particular product, and it'll go off and work out the price for that, and suggest an email back to the customer saying this is the price, and generate a quote for that as well automatically.
So does it know who the end user? It's recognizing the email address that this is
yeah.
being
So
Email
sent
it'll
to.
know
address,
who
yeah.
the customer is from the email address, assuming that
Your
they
data's
are
right.
created.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a whole different process. If that is a brand new person, that would have to go down a different process. But it can recognise who it is, and it can say, well, it will look at BC to get the correct price, Matt. So
Yep.
if this customer has a special price, if it trades in a particular currency, it can go and it can find the correct information, as if you were a person inputting a sales order or quote.
And when you set up the agent, you kind of, there's some tick boxes as to how interactive you want to be with it. So do you want to check everything that it sees and validate it? So when the email comes in, do I want to see the email before it even goes and tries to do anything? That's probably where you'd
Which we'll
start.
probably recommend when you first do it, just to be
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. But it'll generate quotes, and then if a customer places an order, it'll then convert the quote to an order, or if they haven't quoted, it'll create the order up front and send an order confirmation back.
Yeah.
So
So in simple terms, if I emailed your company, Matt, and just said, please, can you quote me for 2 desks and a chair?
yeah,
You'd send me a quote back. I'd say, yeah, please go ahead and order.
no
All
big
of that order could get created on the system without any human interaction at all. It could
Yeah.
all be done by an agent.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe you want to set this, just check the order confirmation before it goes out. Yeah. Quick cursory check. Yeah, that looks fine. And you
Yeah.
can see the kind of the trail of the conversation as well. So if you want to kind of go back to where the conversation started.
that's what impressed
I
me.
think
When
it depends on the products that you sell and the types of customers that you have as
Yeah.
to how easy
Yeah.
that is to do. Anything that's kind of more bespoke or
Yeah, configurable.
requires more interaction is a little bit different. But if it's very straightforward, then
I was quite impressed when I saw the demos, that the, like you said, the interaction that goes back and forth. This isn't just one email that comes in and then the agent does something and they just give them a yes, that's all done. It will go back. It would say we don't have the amount of stock or for that product, but we might have an alternative stock that you've bought previously, and that type of logic can be built into this, and then it will look at what the response is, and it understands this natural language where a lot of emails might not use the exact same SKUs or something like that, and it might be saying the term they'd used in the demo I saw was, can we double up on an item for the chairs, and it knew exactly what that meant, and it said, and you can leave out that, and it removed that next item from the quote. So it was quite intuitive in how it goes back and forth. It is this natural language. You're not conscious that you're speaking now. I've seen a lot of Microsoft demos over the years, so I'm sure that was highly prepared and all the data was absolutely spot on. But I think for the first time, this is the first iteration of agents, and it's not going to be perfect. but what you think will happen in the next few years, this is just going to keep improving and improving, and this thing never
Yeah,
shuts off. It's working 24/7. It's got the latest information, but it will
yeah,
always come back to your data needs to be good, solid data to have the answers for the agent to be able to
Yeah.
work on, doesn't it? Which we've banged on about data accuracy for years and years and years. But it is quite
One, one,
exciting
yeah.
to
So
see.
important. If you're going to allow agents to access your system and to respond to customers and to give information internally or externally, your data has to be correct, because you can only
one,
imagine.
one of the really nice things that the way Microsoft have implemented it is that the sales order agent, in effect, is a user, and it has its own profile. So in BC, you can change kind of your role center, your profile in terms of what you see on the screen. And anything within that profile, any link off each record, it then understands.
Yeah,
So if you've got some bespoke fields on your item card, as long as you can log in and use that profile, that sales order agent profile, and just make sure those fields are on the item card, it will then understand them. And that's just makes it so flexible.
yeah. Yeah,
And
there's so many ways this can be used, and like you quite rightly said, okay, this version 1 might not be something that you would implement, but it's certainly something that you can start to think about how it can be used, and where it can be used to give real efficiencies.
I mean, Microsoft,
Interesting concept though, isn't it? Because the next one, that's a sales order agent. If you've then got purchase order agents, and potentially in
AP.
the future, you're going to have agents talking to agents, aren't you? So if you've got a purchase order agent that is requesting an order, and then the agent's talking to the agent, and then wow,
It goes off and
gets
buys
a
it
bit
for you.
mind blowing, then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I
Just as long as
mean,
they don't fall out with each other.
Well, yeah,
this is what Microsoft saying. You said you might need to sanity check this with a human to cast their eye over it before something is actually placed.
yeah.
But how many conversations
It
could
does all
be?
the
It's doing all the
work for
legwork,
you,
isn't
doesn't
it?
it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
basically you saying yes or no, rather than having to go and find all that information, type it all out, print it to a PDF, attach it to an email, send it out. It's going to do the whole thing, and then you just look at it and go, yeah, I'm happy for that to go, let it go.
Well, it's changed, is it? Where it's talking about humans managing agents. So you won't necessarily just
Yeah,
have a team of human beings in your organization. You will have a team of these agents that
yeah,
you are
and
checking their
that's exactly
workload.
the way you've got to look at it. They are like another, but you don't have to do an appraisal, so that's a bonus.
Well,
It's a different type. It's a different type of performance review.
absolutely, but it's interesting, and that when you start thinking about looking at all the different processes that go on in the background of a business, and agents can be the ones that come out of the box in Microsoft, but then you can start writing, or can work with a partner to start writing agents for your particular business and working out how that's going to
Yeah.
work. You suddenly start seeing how you can join all these up. And of course, having some level of authority over them, but they are doing an awful lot of the work in the background to give you the information you need to offer a better service to your customers and be more efficient. So it's quite exciting times, and they're bringing this into the CRM product as well. There's one called the Research Agent, which is quite nice. So if you've got a lead, it will go away and try and grab all information about that organization in the background. So when you want to say, is this the right organization for us to work with? Is it in the right industries we target? Is it the right size in terms of turnover? All of those things will be in the background, and it's all done for you rather than spending half an hour or an hour going through LinkedIn and on their website and all that type of stuff to check out on them. So it is quite neat the way agents are trying to do a lot of the background and prep work for us before we engage with that company. So they continue to grow and grow and grow, and Microsoft seems to be putting huge amounts of energy and effort behind this. And I think when I was looking at it for the event you were talking about, Matt, you start thinking about what could happen here and the amount of changes to a business on those very basic roles. I can see the legal industry are talking about this, where the amount of research you have to do on past cases and all of that. As long as you've got that stored somewhere and you can go and bang an agent to look at it, the time they can save in collating this information into a
It's
format you
not
want.
just the time saving as well. The human brain cannot possibly cover and consume and summarize the kind of information that an agent or co-pilot can. They you just couldn't. Even a lawyer can't go and read, couldn't consume that amount of information and summarize that amount of information in the way that a co-pilot of an agent could.
An interesting thing as well is the way that for the BC co-pilots, the way they've engineered them, is that sat kind of within the co-pilot setup screen. I mean, you don't see this yet, but and this is what kind of blew my mind, is that when we get the ability to create our own agents, you're kind of saying, you're giving it a name, and all you're doing is just putting a big slab of prompt, of AI prompt in there, and giving and it's quite an in-depth prompt that that goes in there with examples of what it should do in different scenarios and things like that. But it's just text, so you go and write the process that you want to happen. You create the agent, click enable, and off it goes. And that's anything within the system.
But this prompting is one of the skills that they've been talking about with even your chat-based co-pilots, and that will be again to think of every eventuality or what could happen. The more detail you give the agent or even your co-pilot chat, the better response
the question,
you'll get.
the better the question, the better the response.
Absolutely, and you'll continue to involve them. We've got some prompts, or I've got some prompts I use quite regularly for different things with co-pilot. But I'm always refining it. Okay, it would be better if it had this, and so we add that extra statement on, and it just keeps going and going and going. But there's where the human skill is, defining that process. How do we explain to the system what we want it to do to give the agent the information it needs and the boundaries and what it can and can't do? You need to tell it as well. But it is quite scary in some ways. I was thinking that you see a lot of roles. How many organisations have people placing orders every day for their customers, and suddenly a large percentage of that could be done by an agent. But it allows those people to maybe forge better relationships with the customer rather than.
Well, this is it though. Ultimately, though, what it should do, it should give the customer the answer to the question faster. So, in the case of us, for example, and our kind of customer services team and our support team, if somebody logs a support case that has happened before and we have the answer, we can almost immediately give a customer a response, the correct answer, which gets them over the issue that they have. So ultimately, it is so much better for the customer because they get that quick response.
And I've heard some doomsayers saying this is going to be a nightmare for people's jobs, and I'm sure there will be an impact. But I think we've seen this with IT since the very first time a PC or a workstation was put in. The whole thing evolves, doesn't it? And we provide better
changes.
Absolutely. What else can we do? And the new roles that are created because of that. So whether that's reporting, whether it's a portal, logging your support calls via a portal and getting answers that way. We haven't seen our support team decrease in size. They're just doing more complex stuff because it's answering the low level, and then they've got to get through. So I think this isn't going to stop, and agents will continue to carry on. And if you think about what workflow and Power Automate and those tools we've had, this almost supercharges, doesn't it? It's still an element of when this happens, I need X, Y, and Z to take place, but it now can interact on that natural language, and as you said, linking with other agents to get responses and then know which path to take. And I think that's the scary thing, the exciting thing. It depends again which way you look at it, but it's not going to stop. And I think if you don't start looking at it, I don't think it's ready completely today to work your business, but you should definitely be looking at how this is going to happen, because we've already said hundreds of times on this podcast, the speed of change within Dynamics on the SaaS platform is just incredibly quick, and this is going to accelerate alongside. And I think if you're not at least aware of what's possible, then you could see a competitor really use this well.
Absolutely. People are going to be building businesses based on this already.
So okay. I was looking at one from it wasn't actually Microsoft. It was another organisation in the software industry. But they were talking about, if you've got your own little app, which you've built maybe with, on Power Apps, this thing can say, I know that the engineer on the road today has these 3 jobs. I can see job number 1 is a customer that's got an old device, and actually they're entitled to an upgrade as part of their package. So they make sure that is then on the order for the stuff that goes on the van. So when the engineer gets there, he's told, we've updated the camera that we're going to update today because that customer's got an old one and they're entitled to a free upgrade. It's been taken from the warehouse, and the agent has done all that. And then when it knows that you're signing your last job off, it will contact the next customer to say, we're on our way, we'll be with you in 35 minutes or whatever it is, because it has the ability, rather than the engineer having to write, oh, who's my next person to
Yeah.
call, and keeping them informed. That never happens, does it? And then the customer can say, oh, you need to come up to flat 3 and you need, this is the gate code to get in. All that type of stuff the agent is handling, and then the actual operative who's on the road just gets that on their device to say, right, you're here now, this is what you need to know, rather than 20 minutes of phone calls and slowing everybody down. So
Yeah.
it's just small little changes to make us more efficient and quick.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's hope they don't get a podcasting agent and we are all have nothing to talk about in the coming days. Matt, you did joke.
Maybe that will be the next podcast. We'll get AI to create it for us.
You can get some good ideas on ChatGPT
Yeah,
to generate a podcast.
maybe all three of us are just.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe are we real?
I'm going to pause the video now so we all just freeze. But yeah, it's scary times. I think, look, you'll never ever get away from that creative spirit that a human being has, and to be able to change things.
And the relationship, the relationship building, that's still going to be important, but it's the repetitive, non-skilled tasks that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And learning where you can point these agents to get this information. You've got your own data, and suddenly that becomes a challenge, doesn't it, to make sure your data is secure, and the agent is only looking at the correct data. So you don't. We've talked about this on Copilot, that you need to lock your data down, otherwise it can uncover stuff that you might not want the end user to know. So again, your prompting and your data needs to be secure. But I think these things are coming in the products. We talked about the cost of it to wrap up. I mean, the demo that Matt's talked about with the sales order agent, that basically charges on the usage. Each interaction uses more processing. Microsoft demoed one where there was about 5 back and forth between the agent and the customer, and they reckon that would cost about 25 cents. So it gives you an idea of what 15, 20 pence, say, or something like that in that. So if that's what it works out at eventually, it's not a huge amount if that's a decent sized order, and it's the speed of what it can do, and away you go. So that gives a rough indication.
They have a new currency, it's called a message, and you consume messages, and it will vary from order to order, in effect, in that sales order agent scenario. And you can either go pay as you go, or you can buy 25,000 messages, I think it is, for $200 a month. So, it in the scheme of things, compared to people, it's not very expensive.
Well, no, it's if you haven't got to buy 3 Business Central licenses or subscriptions because you've got 3 people just doing orders all day every day, you're not far off off that already, are you, if it comes to that? But and you can even on the page you can cap it so it doesn't, a bit like you do on your phone contract, you don't keep running up a huge cost. But we'll get more information as that now. When's the sales order agent? We've got a date when it's out. I know it's still in the preview in the English language territories. We've been playing with it.
I'm not sure when it's rolling out beyond that yet.
Okay, I guess they're aiming for the autumn release, probably when it might be the big announcement. But it's been in the preview for a while now, hasn't it? We've been able to play with it, and if someone's got a sandbox, can they add it, or is that just only for?
Yes, it's as long as it's a GB or US or Australian, I think, or Canadian,
Okay.
English speaking countries. Then you have to, if you search for Copilot capabilities, you can go and enable it and turn it on, and then you'll see a little agent icon appear, and you need to go and look at the help, because there's certain things you need to do in terms of the mailbox needs to be, there's a couple of settings around sharing and senders privileges that you need to give to people so that it can send on your behalf. But it's not rocket science.
Okay. All right. Well, Matt, Liz, thank you as always for joining us. Anybody who's interested in this, again, if you're one of our customers, mention it to your customer engagement manager. No doubt that we'll be putting more and more stuff on the YouTube channel around this as we can demo it. If you're at any of our events, we're starting really to talk about this. We're not leading with AI and everything. I think there's still plenty of reasons why Business Central has a lot more functionality than just AI. So we're not one of these little partners that just goes, AI is going to solve every single problem you've got, because at this moment in time it doesn't. But it's an interesting thing to keep looking at, and it's definitely getting close to being something to evaluate at least. But apart from that, thanks guys. Hopefully we'll be back in our new studio when we record the next podcast, and we'll probably have James back with us as well. He's out and about today. All right, thanks everybody, and we'll see you soon on Tecman Talks Dynamics.